My sister-in-law and brother got married last Saturday in a private wedding ceremony. Some background info. Due to global situation, the couple did not invite lots of people to the wedding, except close friends and family. Another fact is that my sister-in-law and I work at the same office building, and I know most of her coworkers and her boss. She's close friends with the boss and invited her to the wedding, but didn't invite any coworkers and did not even tell them about the wedding because they'd take offense if they weren't invited. She just said to them she'd eloped with no guests. When we arrived at the ceremony, I saw around 50 guests, most of them friends of the bride. I was offended that she'd lie to her coworkers about it. At the same time, I was offended she wouldn't have invited many people from our side of the family, just to invite more of her friends. I complained about that to my brother during the wedding dinner. He said he didn't want to invite more of our family members because he's not getting along with them, and that my sister-in-law had nothing to do with it. He chose to invite his closest friends, and so did sister-in-law. I called nonsense, and he was trying to cover for her. Another thing I suggested during the dinner was sister-in-law needed to pop champagne for her wedding when we get back to work and celebrate with the coworkers as well, since they were not invited to the actual wedding. She said no, she doesn't want to do that, so I left it at that and didn't speak much. A few days later, when we went back to work, I popped a bottle of champagne to celebrate my brother's wedding to sister-in-law, and how since she wasn't kind enough to invite her coworkers, I took it upon myself to make them part of the celebration. My sister-in-law was upset and took me to the bathroom to scold me for doing that behind her back and against her wishes. I got mad when she scolded me and revealed to coworkers that the boss was invited to the wedding, but the bridezilla, sister-in-law, did not think her coworkers were important enough to get an invite the same way my side of the family, as in aunts, cousins, and uncles, were not important enough to be invited. Her coworkers gave her the silent treatment, but her boss called me out on how inappropriate my behavior was. My sister-in-law called my brother crying, and my brother called me to tell me I'm the idiot for doing this and how I'll now join the part of the family he doesn't get along with since I'm so entitled and disrespectful. So, am I the idiot? You are the idiot. It's not your wedding and not your choice. When you get married, you get to decide who you want at your wedding and how to announce it. How very entitled of you to demand who other people invite to their wedding and how they celebrate. You are very much the idiot with this one. Really nice way to ruin your relationship with your brother. Good job. This was absolutely none of your business, and you were wrong at every turn. You've already been told that by your brother, your sister-in-law, and your boss. Do you really expect to be told something different here? Apologize to your sister-in-law and stop being nasty. You are the idiot. You're an embarrassment to your family. I genuinely hope they cut you off over this stunt. Yes, why did you have a say about her wedding? Jesus, the nerve to be offended because coworkers were not invited? I think you don't like her for some reason. Who attends the wedding? It's decided by the people getting married, not the guest. And with limitations, of course. She invited her close friends and not coworkers. Yes, and the boss. But why do you care? She asked you one thing and you did it anyway. You weren't even celebrating the marriage. You were doing it to punish her, which is really messed up. You had no right to sabotage her at the workplace. Wow, you are the idiot. You have zero business dictating who should be at your brother and sister-in-law's wedding. And the fact you decided to call her out at work for not inviting any of her colleagues shows how spiteful you are. Your brother gave reasons why certain members of your family weren't invited, and you should have respected that. However, your behavior shows that the apple hasn't fallen far from the tree, and I wouldn't be surprised if you don't hear from either of them for a while. I have this friend, let's call her Jane. We're in our mid-30s now, but we were roommates since freshman year in college. She's one of my closest friends and I know her super well. And I know that for all of her 20s, she had horrendous luck with her love life and was extremely insecure about it. She always wanted to get married and have kids, but instead she kept ending up with these idiots who would cheat on her or men who straight up didn't like her, daddy issues, and crying about it. I was always there for her through it and reassuring her that she won't die alone. But her love life kind of became a punchline in our group of friends, and sometimes she'd go along with it especially once she got into her 30s and was still single. She'd say like, haha guys, we all know I'm going to die alone, all the time. And I know she was torn up about it. Still, we were always reassuring her that it's not the case, and she was in therapy about it. Anyways, about a year ago, she finally met an incredible man, and they fell in love almost instantly. He proposed to her last week, and she's just completely over the moon. I've never seen her this happy. So this weekend, we all went out to celebrate. All our friends were saying how we're so happy for her after a long and challenging road, and it was really emotional. For context, I'm still single, no boyfriend, and I want to get married too, but I'm not a pathology like she was. And so I said, I can't believe Jane will get married before me. She started crying and stormed out, and the evening was completely spoiled. I tried calling her this weekend, but she was hysterical and said that I didn't have to point out that she's so unlovable, and it's a miracle she tricked someone into proposing. It's quite sad, but that's not what I meant. That's her own baggage. I apologized and suggested she talk to her therapist about that reaction. Now she completely refuses to speak to me and won't answer my messages. A couple of others in our friend group are on her side, while others have said that she's overreacting and will come around. Am I the idiot? Wow, Major, you are the idiot here. Sounds like some jealousy's going on here, that Jane is getting married while you're still single. Her love life should have never been a punchline. You and your friends 100% contributed to her insecurities. Who responds to a proposal like this? Wouldn't be surprised if Jane cut you off altogether. Not jealousy. For many people, having a Jane in their circle of friends is reassuring. It's like, yes, I'm having trouble finding love, but at least I'm not like Jane. Also, I find disturbing the lack of empathy. Evidently, OP never really thought that Jane was really suffering and never thought their jokes were hurting her. You are the idiot. Instead of being happy for your friend who is getting married to an incredible man, you decided to make a snarky remark due to your insecurities at the time that should have been a celebration of her engagement. Even in this story, you're still putting her down by saying, it's quite sad. She should talk to her therapist, etc., and trying to build yourself up as the strong person instead of the incredibly jealous person that your unlovable friend found someone before you. Sorry I ruined your engagement by putting you down in front of all your friends on what was supposed to be a happy day. Maybe you should see a therapist, loser. Wow, OP. Jealous much? She's a punchline for going out there and trying, but it sounds like you can't even get a bite on the line, huh? Do I sound like a mean girl? Whoopsie, you are the idiot, OP. My take is that she didn't just have a history of toxic boyfriends. She had a history of toxic friends. I hope she and her fiancé have a lovely wedding. For context, my boyfriend, 36, and my son and I, 36 female, live together. And for the moment, I am the main breadwinner. Boyfriend pays his portion of the rent, then I pay for everything else. Food, utilities, my portion of the rent, fuel, basically everything else. I have to budget like crazy to cover everything. I don't have a great salary either, but better than his. He's working on bettering his situation, and I support us with an open heart, no resentment, and no expectations on repayment. He has 2 kids from a previous relationship that visit us semi-regularly when he's off work. So, on to the issue. Last week, he kind of sprung it on me that his kids were coming to stay the night. I asked him nicely to let me know a bit sooner next time so I could work my money situation. I reworked some things to feed us all, and everything is good. I made a buttload of pancakes. Yesterday, he told me they are coming again. I think his ex is asking, and I asked if it's after I get paid. He says no, it's not. I say as gently as I can that it's the end of the month, and I can't really afford 2 extra mouths right now. I'm having to borrow to make ends meet for the week as it is. He blows up, says he doesn't see his kids, and it's not my responsibility, and he'll sell his car for the money if he has to. Car is a moot point, it's not running, and I take him to work and stuff. I love him and I love his kids, but the reality of the situation is that I can literally not feed them too. I know it's just 2 kids and a few extra meals, but it's the reality of our situation. And one of the kids is a preteen that eats more than I do on some days, and that's okay. Please bear in mind that boyfriend has no money at all for extra anything. Am I the idiot for saying I'm not able to accommodate his kids right now? Not the idiot. So you also have to play taxi cab for the household. Jesus, it just gets worse. Quick question. If he acknowledges that they're not your responsibility, exactly why is he mad? It seems like he and the children's mother want to bum off you, dump their kids in your lap whenever they want with no lip from you. That's not the kid's fault, but it's not your problem either. Worry about you and your baby. Budget for you and your baby. He's a grown man. What exactly does he budget for? You should seriously rethink whether or not you want the rest of your life to look like this. I don't think your boyfriend actually wants things to change. He seems just fine springing shit on you, like you don't have enough to deal with by yourself. Dump him like yesterday and kick him out. Get a roommate. I mean, he's a deadbeat. Why in God's name are you dating a loser who reached 36 years old with no savings and no job and whom you have to subsidize? Furthermore, he is also an entitled loser. He expects you to cater to his kids without even bothering to ask you when you're pushing yourself into poverty to support him. You're not the idiot here, but you're sure an idiot to yourself. My 33 female, husband 37, and I recently had our first child. We decided I would stay home with the baby. Previously, I worked freelance from home, but have always had healthy savings and a decent amount of assets acquired before marriage, including our house, which has no mortgage and is a two-family home. We rent out the top unit. Baby and I went to pick up my husband from work as his car was in the shop, and husband wanted me to meet one of his coworkers, Sam. So we all sat outside in the courtyard and chatted. Sam is a few years younger than my husband, and I suspect he sees himself as a bit of a mentor to the guy. We were having a nice conversation about life and kids, and eventually the topic of working overtime came up. The company needs a few extra guys over the weekend and offered overtime to the whole department. My husband asked Sam if he was planning to come in, and Sam said no, that he had plans to go to the beach with his girlfriend and child. I commented that that sounded like a nice weekend, but my husband interjected that if Sam was as concerned with money as he claimed to be in the past, he shouldn't be passing up overtime opportunities. From the context and a later conversation with my husband, it sounds like Sam is griped about not making enough money in the past. My husband plans to take the overtime and told Sam so. Sam countered that he wouldn't give up his weekend for a few extra bucks and stated that my husband doesn't understand because my husband makes more than he does. Husband is in a higher position and makes roughly $12 more an hour. My husband's response was that his higher pay doesn't matter because his partner, me, who was sitting right there, doesn't work and he's the sole provider, so he has to bust his butt anyway. He then insisted that Sam has it easier than he does because Sam's partner also works and they have two incomes. I rolled my eyes, a little annoyed at being talked about like I wasn't there. I pointed out that my husband's partner, me, owns an income-producing house. We not only don't have to worry about rent or a mortgage like Sam does, but we also have a tenant whose rent subsidizes our expenses. I also threw in the fact that we don't need to pay for childcare either. Sam laughed and said, "You see, you don't have it so bad. Why are you always complaining?" But my husband was angry, and I could tell he was a little flustered by the whole exchange. When we got in the car, he accused me of embarrassing him in front of a guy he was just trying to show the right way to. I told him I don't appreciate him acting like I don't contribute to the household when I'm not only raising our child and taking care of the home, but have also made significant financial contributions. This isn't the only time he's touted himself as sole provider or referred to us as a single income family. He brushed it off and said it's not that serious and that technically we are a single income family. So am I the idiot here? Not the idiot. He didn't outright lie about your home situation, but he certainly omitted some information and construed the rest to make it sound like he was in a worse position financially than he is. You rightly called him out on it. I'm sure he's trying to help Sam, but he clearly missed that while Sam wants to be paid more for his work, don't we all? He still values quality time with his partner more than some overtime. Actually sounds like Sam has a good work-life balance. Just because Sam doesn't want to do things your husband's way doesn't make them wrong, right? Husband might be Sam's work mentor, but he isn't Sam's dad, and Sam isn't a child, so he doesn't get to dole out sage advice that Sam should be slaving away all weekend without downtime unless Sam actually asks for advice on earning opportunities. He doesn't get to misrepresent your family's financial security to bolster his teaching credentials. Sounds to me as he is misogynistic and resenting his wife for being a stay-at-home mom and not working, plus having the rent from her house. He convinced himself that she's doing nothing at home and only receiving rent money whilst he's working his butt off and having to take overtime so that she can continue to do nothing. My husband, 37, and I, 31 female, were invited to a house dinner by his best friend, 40 male, midweek. The best friend and his wife, 35, have 2 kids under 3, and she's pregnant with the third one. She's also been dealing with PPD. The second kid is 12 months, which is now turned into antenatal depression. My husband, who usually doesn't gossip, told me yesterday how the best friend's wife is pregnant again and is very insecure because she hasn't lost the weight from the previous 2 pregnancies. Also, she is fighting with her husband. He said she constantly FaceTimes the husband to see where he is and who he's with. This was weird for my husband to share, so I flat out asked him if I should dress down. I genuinely feel as though that's what he was implying I do by sharing those stories. Now, I'm a housewife and make it a point to dress up every single day. I could be gardening and my hair is done. Even when I dealt with PPD, I forced myself to shower and get ready every day. My intention isn't to make this woman feel inadequate or insecure. However, I'm getting anxious that if I dress up and do my hair, it may cause issues between her and her husband. To be honest, I don't even really want to go. I find hanging out with these people to be a chore. I do not want to go because this lady stalked me on Instagram about 2 years ago and was telling her husband things about my pictures and saying something was going on in my marriage, hence why I didn't post many photos of my husband. This turned into my husband accusing me of cheating, so much so that I deleted all social media since. Also, when we had them over for Thanksgiving last year, something my husband pushed for, this woman wouldn't stop criticizing me for crate training the dog and making comments about our son's speech issues. If it were up to me, I wouldn't go, but this is my husband's friend of 20 years. They also do business together. I do my best not to show up to most things, but it's important to my husband to go this time around. Despite all of these things, I still don't want to make her feel bad about herself. However, I tend to bend to a lot of other people's feelings. Am I the idiot if I dress nicely for this dinner? Not the idiot. I think there are self-esteem issues in general. You could appear in joggers and a regular t-shirt with your hair in a bun, and she could still feel very bad about herself. But what's wrong with your husband that he would listen to her and accuse you of cheating because of social media photos? I'm shaming your husband here. That's ridiculous. He should have stood up for you, not accused you of cheating. To me, it sounds as if your husband puts his friend before you. Him accusing you of cheating and for you to go as far as deleting all social media? And now this? My only advice to you is to sit your husband down and tell him how you feel and propose marital counseling if needed. If he doesn't take your feelings into consideration, you will grow to resent him and it will result in an ugly divorce. That talk is long overdue with you two. It sounds like you're judging her because you think you dealt with your PPD better than her, which would make you an idiot. Frankly, it's odd that you think if you dress as you normally do, it could cause a spat between them. I feel bad for this woman. She's clearly not doing well. I wonder if the house dinner was even her idea, given she's struggling so much. If you act human, compassionate, and kind towards her, there should be no problem. You thinking your physical appearance matters more than the attitude you bring means you are the idiot.